Okay, let's talk about the virtual road trip logistics. So again, I know if you're here, you have heard about the Texas Counts road trip. Excited to have you here in this planning session. You know, next week we are doing a virtual road trip through all the regions of Texas, and we are ending our road trip deep in the heart of Texas on Friday, June 26th in Central Texas and the Hill Country. In terms of what the weekly schedule looks like, again, I'm sure many of you have seen this before, but did want to take some time to break apart exactly what we're doing next week. So of course, we're visiting different regions of Texas each day of the week, looking specifically at next Friday, June 26th. So we will start off the day at 10 a.m. Central here in Central Texas with a kickoff rally. We will have between 4 to 6 speakers talking, one, about the importance of the census, but also celebrating the regions that we're in. One note about the kickoff rally, yes, of course, we would want community members to be able to join us and participate, but this is really an opportunity for folks like us who are engaging in Get Out the Count efforts to get excited, to get ready to be promoting the census throughout the course of this week, but also this day. So again, we'll have 4 to 6 regional speakers, and then we'll also go through kind of what our schedule is going to be looking like for our day in Central Texas and the Hill Country. So speakers going through the schedule, but also sharing out where we're at in terms of self-response data and just getting people ready to promote the census. Then throughout the day, this is when our schedule starts to look a little bit different, and I'll actually show you a sample schedule later in the presentation. But throughout the course of the day, Texas Counts is really trying to amplify local trusted voices across regions, meaning you'll see us at the kickoff rally. Know that we will be promoting and amplifying your events all day long. We will have 2 pit stops or check-ins throughout the day. And really, this is just our opportunity to basically go on Facebook Live, say hello, give shout outs to folks doing great work in the regions, but also just remind people about the scheduled events happening throughout the course of the day. So I keep saying scheduled events, and I know that some of you have been planning them, some of you have been thinking about potentially participating. All of our current events are currently on our website, texascounts.org, and I'm actually going to dig a little bit deeper into specifically what we mean by events. But spoiler, again, it's when our trusted messengers, our census champions, aka you, are able to lead events or efforts, big or small, in your communities. And so our goal is to capture all of these events and efforts happening through y'all submitting them to us, and then us promoting them on our website and amplifying your efforts, so folks can see, 1, the great work you're doing, 2, promoting the census, but 3, of course, oh my gosh, my 3 was promoting the census. So amplifying your efforts and promoting the census as well. I know that you have seen these before, and I'm going to skip right ahead to our slide. So if you do go to the Texas Counts website, this is what the beautiful events page looks like with our blue bonnets. We know that we're kicking things off on June 26th at 10 a.m. You are in this planning call right now, so thanks for being here. Do know that when you do go to this website, this is where we're populating those events. And so again, it's really important that we have an idea, or that you email us or you submit the Google form, so we know what's happening and what you're leading, so we can amplify and have folks across the state tune in. In addition to that, we do have 2 hashtags associated with our road trip, which is just Hill Country Counts, Central Texas Counts. And I know that you all, just in your census work, have your own hashtags associated with your organization, with your city, with your county. Yes, definitely use those. Use hashtag 2020 census. But the reason why we have these road trip specific hashtags is so that we can capture what's actually happening on the ground in the Hill Country in Central Texas. So if we have folks in Bastrop and Bexar County using the Central Texas or Hill Country hashtags, depending on where you are, I know when I click on that, I'll have a feed and get to explore those regions. So just a quick comment on that. In terms of what our counties actually are, these are how we've carved up our state. Again, it was not an easy task, but the amazing Dr. Lila Valencia from the Texas Demographic Center had a hard job of carving up our state. And so these are the ones that are falling in our Central Texas and Hill Country areas region. In terms of efforts, again, the purpose of next week is really just to get everyone in Texas talking about the census so we can increase our self-response rates. I know that over the past couple of months, we have all been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Our lives look really different than they did back in the fall, back in 2019. And so with that in mind, and knowing that our COVID numbers are rising and that racial injustice in our country has been brought to the forefront, we know this is important, that those messaging and that news is important and worthy. But we also, throughout the course of next week, do want to take a little bit of that spotlight and people's feeds or in the news, just to remind people that yes, the census is here. Yes, it's still happening. And also it's helpful if it makes sense to connect the fact that we know that the emergency resources and things that we're using to respond directly to COVID-19, census data, census funding informs that. And then of course, when we think about the census and our undercounted populations, and again, the racial injustice happening in our country, those two things do fit together. And so again, as long as we can get folks thinking about the census or talking about the census, that's really our goal for next week. And I know everyone on this webinar, you have a voice, you have a platform that you can share out content about the census, but also tapping into your networks, the local businesses in your community, organizations, local leaders, and just saying, hey, we're promoting the census this week. If you could share out a quick tweet or a quick Facebook message about the importance of filling out the census with a link to the form, any type of promotion throughout this week is welcomed and good. In terms of planning, I did want to kind of have a little bit of a discussion or conversation around how you to even wrap your mind around planning an event. And the first thing I want to say is any type of effort that you're able to participate in next week is great and it's welcomed. Meaning if it's just you scheduling tweets, that's going to have a huge impact because those reach people, or if you're able to have a full day event, again, whatever it is in the gamut of outreach and getting folks engaged and excited, we're on board with, we're encouraging, we welcome. One thing to think about when you are, if you are able to participate in next week is who are you trying to reach? Of course, we want to reach locally in our communities, in our cities, in our counties to make sure that our folks are responding to the census. But that outreach might look a little bit different than if we were reaching a larger statewide audience. So thinking locally, if I were to have an event, I might think about doing a census car parade or putting up yard signs through some hot spots throughout the community. Maybe it's me contacting my local news station or radio station and getting some airtime. So that looks a little bit different than if we were trying to reach the statewide audience. And that's really when that road trip fund comes into play. And so again, if you're thinking about having a wider audience tune in and maybe some engaging or interesting content, that's when we're thinking about our Facebook Lives, our Instagram Lives, our videos promoting how amazing our cities are. And so again, that looks just a little bit different than if we were going to be doing something more local. So I think that ties right into that capacity conversation. And so again, if your capacity is just scheduling tweets or Facebook postings or Instagram, whatever that social media might look like to you, great. That's exactly what we want because that's going to have an impact. If you're thinking about something more so in your community, we were on a call with North Texas earlier this morning, and in Texarkana, they have a farmer's market. And so they were saying, yes, like we can get out there, we can make sure we can safely get out there, have promotional material about the census, and also just have an iPad set up and then obviously clean that iPad off, but having folks respond in person. And so again, that's great. That's getting out in the community safely and having folks respond. But of course, there's also virtual events. Again, whether you're going live for 5 minutes and you're in Galveston doing an interview on the beach, or in Northeast Texas, they've actually have a full day planned of different census staycation events that they'll be leading. Again, whatever your capacity is to get engaged, we welcome. And then the last thing is thinking about what folks are going to want to tune into. Again, capturing our headlines right now is COVID-19 and those rising numbers, as well as the racial injustice in our country. And so when we think about what we might want folks to tune into, there's kind of two camps. One, of course, is connecting those big topics in our country right now to the census. But then there's also things that might be I guess fun is the right word, thinking of a story time of maybe having some local librarians or even you just going on Facebook Live and doing a story time so kids can tune in. Again, maybe that looks like one of the events that Northeast Texas is doing is they're doing a gardening East Texas style. So they're going live, and that's one that I'm really interested to tune into to see what gardening does look like in East Texas and what type of vegetables and fruits they're growing in this time of year. So again, thinking about content that people at this point in time would be interested in tuning into. You know your community's best. You know what they're going to want to tune into. And again, it can be 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. You can have multiple events throughout the course of the day, whatever your capacity is. In terms of the golden rule for planning, the rule really is that there are no rules. Again, in terms of the time of day you want to host it, how long you want to host it, how involved you want to be with it, that's really up to you. You know your community best, you know your capacity to be engaged in this road trip the best. And so really, whatever makes the most sense for you, we're on board with to support you in your efforts. I wanted to put this slide in, and I know I shared this out on Monday during our weekly update call, but I did want to include just a couple of examples of local events and statewide events that you could lead. Again, we are having quite a few census car parades, our census caravans going through our state next week. Folks are placing yard signs, doing phone and text banking. If you have an organization who serves clients and you're doing that remotely, maybe in those checkup calls, you're also just sprinkling in some messaging about, hey, did you get your chance to fill out the census? Do you have any questions? Partnering with those essential locations in your community and open businesses. Maybe you're slipping in some census flyers in those to-go orders or pickup orders that are going out from local restaurants. And then, of course, going virtual with performances, events, games. I was on a call with South Texas yesterday, and they do a serenade in the city in Brownsville. And so every night they have a local musician play, and a lot of people tune in. And so they're hoping next week to use that space and opportunity to promote the census as well. On the flip side, when we're thinking about if we have a larger audience, our statewide audience, again, these are efforts that we definitely want our communities tuning into, but also thinking about a wider audience in mind. And so obviously using social media, the toolkit, virtual performances, games, events, tours, again, whatever that engagement looks like to you, to get folks tuning in and exploring your community is great. Of course, sharing videos and photos and stories from the region are wonderful as well. So don't think you have to be going live on this day. You can pre-record you heading out to the missions around San Antonio. Show us how beautiful they are. And even if it's a little hot in the summer, send in that video. And that's something that we can share out on the day of next Friday. So someone's like, oh, visiting the missions in San Antonio, a virtual trip. But then, of course, we're going to sneak in a little bit of that census messaging. So again, whatever that engagement involvement looks like is great. Again, I think social media is definitely going to be our friend throughout this process. I did want to share some events and things that have happened and things that are happening across the state for the road trip. One being this amazing event coming out of West Texas. UT Health is partnering with the Census Bureau on a Census Church Challenge. So they are working with their churches in the area. They have an event from 2 to 5:30 next week. They're having music and games. They even have an Elvis impersonator performing during the Facebook Live. They're playing Sensoteria, which I think is going to be really fun, and really interested to see what those cards look like for the game. But again, just a way for folks to have a little bit of fun, tune in, connect with community safely, but also promoting the census. Another example comes from the Valley, from Hidalgo County. They've been doing this for quite a few weeks now, but they have a Census Game Day Friday Night Lights Challenge. We know we love our football in Texas, and so they have been having the local high schools go head to head and looking at that self-response data to see who can have the highest percentage. Again, this is a social media campaign. They're tagging those local school districts and ISDs and getting them engaged in a friendly competition. Another example, it can be as simple as sending out or posting on social media about a place you're at. For example, that's me in West Texas. I'm saying like, howdy from Big Bend National Park. Did you know census data informs our parks? Don't forget to fill out the census. Again, this is content that maybe when you're scrolling, you're like, oh, where's Katie at? And then you read the description and you're like, oh, I forgot to fill out the census. Again, just a really easy touch that can hopefully reach someone that hasn't filled out that questionnaire yet. These are two examples coming from our friends in North Texas and East Texas. So specifically in Northeast Texas, I've been alluding to this big event that they're having, but they are doing a census staycation, all Facebook Live events. They're doing top things to do in Northeast Texas. They're playing games, a scavenger hunt. They're even using the census records to do some ancestry searching, and then again, that gardening as well. So you can see there's some things that are, yes, 100% directly related to the census, but other things that are just kind of fun and getting to explore those communities. In St. Augustine County, they are doing a census parade today. So they are having local leaders, community leaders hop in the back of pickup trucks and cars and just going through the community promoting the 2020 census. Again, this is just very local, but they're reaching their community members and getting folks interested in filling out that questionnaire. And my last example comes from South Texas, the Valley area. But these 8 counties are covered by this organization. And so they made this amazing PowerPoint presentation to where they're just highlighting they're highlighting their different counties that they touch, about why you should visit them, what makes them special, but also sprinkling in, again, that census messaging. And so for me personally, when I was scrolling through this slide deck, I saw Edwards County, there is something called the Devil's Sinkhole. I've never heard of it before, but now I'm really interested in going to visit Edwards County because I want to explore there because I love the outdoors. So again, it can be this type of engagement next week, can be whatever you want it to be and however you envision it, as long as, ultimately the end goal is to reach folks and promote the census. So this is a sample schedule. This is not the schedule for next week, but I did want to show you kind of what events could potentially look like. So on Monday, we're going to East Texas in the Gulf Coast. Again, we start every day off with a kickoff, but then as you see, we have multiple events happening at the same time, and that is okay. That's what we want. When we think about going to a conference or to a music festival, we know a lot of times that we have multiple panels to attend or multiple bands to check out. So the same thing with the road trip. Again, once you submit those events to us, we will feature them on our website, we will promote them, we will amplify them in as many ways as we possibly can. And then with that, we'll have folks tuning in. So for an example, at 2 o'clock on this sample day in Fort Bend County, they are doing a Facebook Live scavenger hunt. But at the same time in Lamar County, local librarians are going to be doing a storytelling on Facebook Live. So me as a consumer, I'm like, you know what? I'm really interested to kind of run around Fort Bend County virtually, so I'm gonna key into that scavenger hunt. Whereas a parent might be like, oh, maybe story time is a good time for my kiddos to sit in front of the computer or the laptop for a second and hear someone read them a story. So again, this meeting, whatever time of day makes the most sense for you to carry out an event, just let us know. We'll put it on the schedule, we'll promote it out, and make sure that we're having folks tune in. And then the last thing that I will share out before I kind of pass over the mic to everyone on the call is So what should you do next? So first, RSVP for those kickoff events if you haven't already. Next, start planning your Get Out the Count efforts. Again, I hope that I've shared some examples of how just wide your engagement can be next week. And then if you are able to participate by leading an event, just send it my way, martin@everytexan.org or via the Google form. And then with that as well, if you want to pre-record content or share pictures from your community and just be like, Katie, I was in Williamson County and was visiting some parks in the area and took a bunch of pictures, like you can use these to promote during the Central Texas Day, I'd say, cool, we'll get those queued up to share out. So whatever you want to submit to us, we're happy to figure out where it goes. And then as I shared, I'm going to show you in a second what the planning toolkit looks like. So we have a planning toolkit and a social media toolkit, and don't worry, we're going to smush those together. But the planning toolkit did go live today, which I'll show you, which we could share out with folks. But really that social media toolkit, which is going to have those sample graphics and tweets and visuals and just sample postings, that's going to be huge for us to share out with folks in our network. So again, we get everybody in our communities talking about the 2020 census again. And I just gave a brief example. Again, the events don't have to be big and elaborate. I'm hoping that this example of what the event looks like makes it seem a little bit more reachable and tangible for folks to get engaged. So the last thing I want to do is quickly show you the toolkit in case you haven't had a chance to peek at it yet. And then, like I said, I will stop talking and hand it off to y'all. It does take a second to load though, it's kind of big. Okay, hopefully everybody, if the image is appearing for me, so hopefully it is appearing for you. I like to see all the people who are currently looking at it right now. That toolkit, we have our amazing visual. Then when you scroll down, we've got of course, our table of contents. An introduction. So again, if you need some language about what this even is, we've got you covered right here. Scrolling down, we have our itinerary, what the day is going to look like, what our hashtags are, where to find the events, how to RSVP. What is it? Again, just a little bit more explanation of what we've been up to, what's happening. Trip planning week, what regions do you represent? Again, we're on our Central Texas Hill Country call, and so they're all my friends right there. Scrolling right along, our regional kickoffs and planning calls, where to find us on social media, because we want to find you as well so we can promote. And one thing I will say is that this toolkit is really my presentations, my emails that I've been sending you. It's just been put in a nice, easy to follow format. And then the last thing I want to show you is an example of the type of content that you'll be receiving soon from the toolkit. So this is the first post that we're sharing out, which is basically a welcome to Central Texas in the Hill Country. So this is like our save the date. Hey, next week we're going on a virtual road trip of Texas. We have a sample post right here, a downloadable, clickable link right there as well. And so for our toolkit, for the social media aspects of this toolkit, it's going to look very similar to this. Hopefully this is easy to follow. And I do know, especially our Census Bureau friends, Google Docs doesn't always agree with their computers. And so we'll make sure that we send out, in addition to the Google file, but also a document that folks can access. But really excited about that. And you will be getting another update when those social media collateral is ready to go. And now is the time where I'm going to take a pause and see if anyone does have any questions, if anyone wants to share out any ideas that they have. This part of the call tends to start to be a little bit, oops, I'm actually going to stop recording.